Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to what will be a anti-haul, dupe, the vibes, and let's just talk about the new Nabla palette. Let's just do it like that. Nabla has recently spoilered that there is going to be a new palette called the Secret Palette launching on May 22nd. And this palette looks very much in the same format as their latest palette, the Poison Garden. There are 59 shadows in 3 rows, and yeah, my first reaction was, I was not extremely impressed. I have to say the swatches made me change my mind a tiny little bit, but in general, I was not super impressed. Now, the color scheme is divided in 3 different rows, but also it is meant to be used all together. I've just seen Mr. Daniel's video using the palette on a model, and he was discussing how indeed you can actually just mix and match all of the colors in the palette, but otherwise you can do just mono theme, let's say, rose looks with one of the rows. So let's take a look at these eyeshadows in more detail. On the top row we have Aesthetic, Contigo, Big Experience, Giulietta and Romeo, and the top row is more of a pink inspired row. There's 2 shimmers that look like satin. I think he mentioned these are satins, and that's the first and the last one. And one is a little bit more bronzy and one is a little bit more with a pink tone in it, in the brown. Then there is a, he called it a hazelnut type of color, which is, from the photos at least, of course, looks a little bit on the pink side. Then there's the big boom and center spot of this row, which is called Big Experience. It's a fluid metal, and he calls it a duochrome crimson shade. And I believe there's like fuchsia, duochrome on top of that. And then there's a little pink matte shade. Now, my first reaction there is, why do we need that crimson-y pink shimmer? That's actually a very hard color to wear, and not something that is, just a lot out there or very easy to wear, but that's okay. I like the addition of the pink in there, and the rest is just quite boring browns. Anyways, we can go further and look at the second row, and that's the actual interesting row to me. Then we have Play Hard, which is a duochrome shade that looks white in the pan, but it has mint green and lime duochrome. Then we have Rosemary, which is a dark based forest green. Addiction, which is a teal that is not too dark, he said. Fantasize is one of the new diamond finish eyeshadows, and I'll show you later what it reminds me of, like, so much. And then we have Mea Culpa, which is a dark brown. Last row is the more warm tones. We start with a shade that I haven't heard anything about. It's called I Promise, and it looks to me like a light champagne. Quite boring, if I have to say so. The next is Hypersensual, which is another of the diamond shadows, and this is a transparent base with peach and gold and fuchsia duochrome, then a warm tone transition shade Ghibli, and then a beautiful fluid metal gold, very warm gold, called Creation Crown, and finally Nabla. And Nabla is a velvet matte, it seems, but in some of the swatches they posted in the video, it actually looked like there was glitter in there, which I was a bit surprised about. Anyways, reasons why you might want this palette, I'd say it is a complete palette. You can create a lot of looks with it. You have a lot of transition shades, and that's also one of the reasons you shouldn't. If you have a makeup collection that has their fair share of neutral shadows, this is then just worth for maybe a few of the shades, the pink and the bright crimson, the 3 greens, and maybe that fantasize purpley taupe gray. I don't know exactly what color, how to call it. Anyways, I put together a few dupes for you in my palette using singles. I have a few options for each shadow, but before I go into these, I would like to show you a few palettes that have that same vibe. First of all is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette. Now, if you open this, one of the first things you notice is the warm tone gold, the green throne, and the grayish purple dimension. I will swatch them for you guys because I think that here we're very close to what is the vibe of the Nabla palette. And this one also has these finishes that are extremely dimensional and very, very unique. Other overlaps that we have here are the dark brown, for example. We have Lucid, which is a duochrome shimmer that shifts on the gold side here. And overall, I think if you have this, you might not need the Nabla palette. They're not perfect dupes, of course, but a few of the shades really, really remind me a lot of the Nabla palette. And that's one. Then, if instead your interest point lies in the teal, we have Subculture. Subculture has Axis, which is this beautiful deep teal. We have the brown again. We have a duochrome gold with lime. That can also be inspiring in that direction. We have a little peach instead of the pink. And overall, this one also has a few of the shades that are in there, and that if your interest is in the teal and you have Subculture, I think you can skip it. Now, with those two mentions out of the way, let's get a little bit into these singles. For the browns, I went off of swatches that I saw in Instagram stories. It's very difficult to narrow down the exact undertone of a brown eyeshadow if you don't have it in front of you. So pardon me on that, but I'm sure you have enough browns in your collection if you have a collection of makeup. If instead that you don't, those browns will be useful. I picked eyeshadows from my single collection, so you'll find Makeup Geek, you'll find Colourpop, you'll find Nabla, you'll find Neve Cosmetics, and I think that's about it. Let's start with the first two shades. They are from Makeup Geek, and the first one is Homecoming, which is a satiny or like a traditional shimmery medium bronze, and then we have the shade Bake Sale, which is a neutral transition brown. And these two are to like dupe, let's say. I don't want to say dupe because I don't have it with me, so I don't know that it's exactly a dupe, and it is Aesthetic and Contigo. Now for the more interesting shade, the Crimson Big Experience. I have two options for you here. One is a pigment that I pressed. This is from Neve Cosmetics and it's the shade Compilation. I pressed it because I prefer to have my pigments in a pan, and this is also a beautiful crimson shade with that strawberry duochrome on top. It's a beautiful, very bright red, and it has a little bit of fuchsia on top. I honestly bought this to mix as a lip color with a gloss because on my eyes it's a bit difficult to wear. I have a look that I did a full face of Neve Cosmetics and I used it on my eyes, so I'll link that in the cards. Then my second option is from We Makeup and it's shade 302. However, this one here is a much warmer red, so you lose the pink shift on here. You see it's a little bit of a more traditional metallic eyeshadow. But these are both options if you want a bright strawberry fuchsia shadow and that palette doesn't really inspire you. For the pink, I was at a loss. I have to say that all of my pinks are more on the coral side, and I just don't wear a lot of pink. And I just don't wear a lot of straight up pink. I want to show you how my pink and coral palette from Colourpop looks, and you can see that my pinks are much more orangey and warm than the one in the Nabla palette. So I picked one that is one of my favorites, and this is called Flower Boy. I just did a look with this on my Instagram page for the Wildflowers and Cows makeup challenge, and this is what it looks like. You can see that it fits nicely with these red crimson-y shades, and I think it is a good excuse for not buying the palette if you need one. And that was a dupe for the shade Giulietta, the pink, and now a dupe for the shade Romeo. And this seems to me a little bit more of a pink, rosy toned, shimmery brown. So my first choice was West Star by Colourpop. I recently purchased this one because I felt like I needed it in my collection, and you can see it here. You can also maybe call this a little bit of a burgundy, but it is definitely more brown and it has a little bit of that pink in it. Another option from Nabla themselves actually is the shade On the Road, and this is also one of their let's say satin eyeshadows, and this is a little bit, yeah, I don't know, it actually looks very similar. It might be a dupe for the Colourpop one. But you can see that overall the vibes here are pink and neutral and work well together. So to me, this first line is duped with no need for further investigation. One last thing that I almost forgot to tell you was to show you the Cali palette from Mulak Cosmetics, because it has this pinky duochrome eyeshadow, and where do I put that? Here. That is much more pink, as you can see, than the other two, and if you like that, I think that would also work very well here, as well as it has that lime glitter in there, and the brown and the gray and the green, so, and the gold. So this also actually dupes a little bit the vibe of the Nabla palette, at least of the colorful part of the Nabla palette. In the second row, that is the row that has my heart, and we start from the shade Play Hard, which is this highlighty shade that has lime and mint duochrome. I personally don't have anything that has the same shimmer or duochrome in it, but I have two options for you. The first one, I'll go here, is Matcha by Neve Cosmetics, and this one has more of the green duochrome right there. Whereas this is Colourpop, the big three, has more of that minty blue duochrome shift. So I think that probably combining these two will get you the color that is in the Nabla palette. But anyways, I think they're both gorgeous options for this shade. Then for the shade Rosemary, I already showed you the Prism palette, the shade Throne, how it's a very good option for that. And then another option is Epic by Makeup Geek, and that is my personal favorite green, forest green shimmer. I'm not really able to swatch very nicely in these positions, but here you have it. It's a dark base with a forest green shimmer. It's a foiled eyeshadow, so I think it will reproduce quite nicely the fluid metal finish from the Nabla palette. That is a dead dupe, I think, for most of these green eyeshadows. And I have to say, Makeup Geek did it first. Then for the teal, you've probably seen a lot of my teals in my blue and green single eyeshadow collection videos that I did previously. If you didn't watch those, I'll link them in the cards, because I think they're very nice videos to have an idea of what eyeshadows I have in my collection. However, because I didn't do my teal one yet, which I had promised you guys, I have two options here today. One is from Makeup Geek, and it's Time Travel. And if you remember the video where I dropped the palette with this one in, and that made it that it's now destroyed, you're a trooper. And this is what it looks like. It's really crumbly because I dropped it, but this is a nice teal eyeshadow. It's everywhere now, you guys, it's everywhere. The second option is Storm by Neve Cosmetics. So if you have an Italian base, or if you're Italian and you prefer to order from Neve Cosmetics, this is Storm Wow, my swatches are getting worse and worse. I apologize, you guys. This is Storm, also slightly less desaturated, so slightly less gray than Time Travel, but also a beautiful teal. And I forgot to mention, the teal eyeshadow is called Addiction in the Nabla palette. Then we have Fantasize, and as I told you, I think the dupe there lies in the Prism palette, but I also have a beautiful eyeshadow that I would put in there without blinking twice. This is Glass Bowl by Colourpop. My god, my brain farted. And this is what it looks like. I would put this one in a heartbeat. It's one of my favorite eyeshadows from them. It has this mint green base, gorgeous. And then finally, the last shade is called Mea Culpa, and it is a deep chocolatey brown, and this is the shade that I miss from the matte single eyeshadow release from Nabla. Where did the deep chocolate brown go? There was, I don't know, the weirdest purples, but no brown. So I so hope they will come out with some more singles eventually. And here it is. Right here I chose the shade Dark Roast from Makeup Geek. And this is quite a neutral one. It will go well with the cooler tones and balance it all out. So you see, this is the other row. We have one row which is more pinky, and here we have the other row which is more green and interesting, I think. I guess I'll use my other hand. You'll forgive me if I can't swatch as well on this hand as the other. And then we go to the final row, which is the boring row, let's say. But I'm not going to judge without seeing the palette in person. Starting with the shade I Promise, again, champagne shade. Difficult to tell which one I would put there. You probably have champagne shades, and I have added in here Comeback Kid from Colourpop because it's a little bit more interesting. It has a bit of a, I don't know, peachy duochrome to it, and I think it's cute. Then for the new diamond shade that is called Hypersensual, I chose two different eyeshadows. One is I'm Peachless by Makeup Geek, and this is a duochrome peachy. You can barely see it, I think, on my hand. Let me see if I can get a better swatch. There we go. That is much better. And this is a peachy duochrome with a very light base, and it has a bit of more of a pinky shift. And then finally another one that from Colourpop that has an amazing finish is Ready or Yacht, and this has a very glittery finish, and I think it is beautiful. And you can see it here, it really reflects the light much more than any of the others, and it has a bit of a duochrome idea. It's difficult to say which one is the right shade for the first two shades, because I haven't seen a lot of swatches that are detailed enough to show me what the shades are, and the shades are not that special. Same goes with the next one, which is Ghibli, which is a mid-toned warm brown transition shade, and I picked the shade Tan Lines by Makeup Geek. My hands are getting dry from swatching all of these eyeshadows, but here it is right here. One of my favorite tones of brown, to be honest. It's very well wearable by itself, just all over the lid. I should actually remember to take it out and just use it as an all over the lid shade. Very pretty. Then for the gold Creation Crown, I think it's called, yes. Other than the one in the Prism palette, I always refer to the shade Untamed by Makeup Geek. This is one of my favorite golds. It is extremely warm, extremely shiny. And this, I think, is a dead-off dupe for the Nabla shade. So if you were wanting that, that is that. I was thinking maybe to show you the difference compared to Cleo by Nabla, which is another of their gold singles, but it's a much more traditional gold, a bit more neutral, and you can see it here. It's a properly different eyeshadow, and I think this the Makeup Geek Untamed is really the dupe for that palette. And finally, for the black, I will always tell you a matte eyeshadow with glitter is a big no-no. Now I don't know that there is glitter. It looked like that in some of the stories of the people who were swatching the palette, but it might be that they just had filters on. So I am just going to go with the matte black from Nabla. This is called Pitch Black. I raved about it when I did my review of their latest, I think last year's release of the Velvet Matte Single Eyeshadows. It is a beautiful, very buildable matte black. I love it. Here it is right here. And the other option is Corrupt by Makeup Geek, also a very staple black. So, if you made it this far, thank you. I would like to know what you guys think of this palette, whether you're gonna pick it up, whether you're gonna try to dupe it, or why the color story calls to you or doesn't. I want to open a conversation because the launch is very soon, and I would like to know if there are reasons that I didn't think of that I should buy it. Another factor to count in is that because it's very similar in format to the Poison Garden, it's probably gonna cost the 40 euros that the Poison Garden costs. And I am not sure about any sale to start with. They used to do 15% on all new products, but nowadays they rather do bundles, which make it actually, I think, quite unhappy for people who just want to buy one thing. But it's their shop, so they decide. I don't mind at all. I will be personally waiting off to try it out when I go to Italy in June. I will not be purchasing it off the bat. And if I do, you can slap me figuratively on the hand like that. Bad Alice. I am sure that my friends will do that if I purchase it. But I will try really hard not to. So far, what I've seen has not convinced me. And yeah, let me know what you think. Thank you for hanging out. I will insert here close-ups of these swatches so that you can see them again. And I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!